Are you ready to do this, Matt?
Yes, sir. Punch it, Chewie.
Welcome, super friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot is Matt Shaw. We're two nerds that just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode 191. We release every Thursday morning. You can find us on the website, fortofnerd.com. We have links to iTunes, Google Music, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, everywhere podcasts are available. Stop by and relax a while. If you like what you're hearing, you can hit that subscribe button, and you can get us automatically each and every week in your ear holes. Matt, it's been a week. Man, it's been a heck of a week. How are you doing?
Man, doing well. Doing real well. How are you doing?
Yeah, I don't know yet.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's fair. I get that. Some weeks are like that.
Yeah.
You know, it was actually a pretty good week, an exciting week. Lots of stuff happened for us that was kind of fun. So,
ooh, do tell.
Well, one of the things we've been really excited about, because I don't know if I've talked about this show on the podcast before, but Jesse and I are big time into Psych. And we got Psych the movie like a year and a half ago or so, or 2.5 years. I'm trying to remember. And they kept saying, here it comes. It's been filmed. It's coming out this holiday season, and that was last year. And then it got delayed, and we were frustrated because we didn't know why. And then it got kind of through the grapevine. We heard about Peacock, and then they were waiting because NBC and USA, they own the rights to that show. So long story short, we had to wait until July 15th when Peacock was released to be able to watch Psych the movie too. So we've been real excited. So we got all pumped, and we made it like kind of a fun little evening, and we got real excited, and we got to watch Psych the movie too, which we loved. I mean, any Psych is great Psych. So we were stoked about that and hoping for a third. And that was a big, exciting moment for us.
You know, I just can't get into Psych.
I don't understand that.
I've tried to watch, I mean, I've probably watched 15, 20 minutes of an episode Britta's watching on and off every single, probably, 2-3 times a week when she's rewatching it, and she's rewatching it again. I just don't find it funny. Yeah,
that really surprises me, actually. I've never met anybody who's seen it and doesn't like it. It's just fun, wholesome, silly comedy. If I can understand if you don't like really silly stuff, then this isn't for you. Like, it's silly, it's stupid, and so if that's
exactly the word I use to describe it. Stupid.
If it's not your thing to be like silly, then you probably wouldn't like it. I guess if you don't think that silly people are funny, then you're not going to like it. Basically, if you don't think I'm funny.
I think silly people can be funny, and I find you funny. I just watch that show, and I always think, like, it doesn't actually make me laugh. I struggle to find the humor in the writing or in the performance, and I just kind of go, this just reminds me of a show that was put up on USA that barely made the cut, that somehow aired and just wasn't great. And I felt that way about a lot of the shows on USA.
Yeah.
And I've honestly tried, like, saying, like, okay, well, Britta's got 15 minutes, here's the end of a show. It should be hitting on some big laughs. It should be rolling up stuff. It should be, coming to some conclusions for some big punchlines. And I just sit there and go, I could care less. I couldn't care about these characters, and I don't see where the funny is. Well, if you're not starting
from the beginning, I don't know. You're hurting me right now, and I don't like it. It's making me like you less.
I'm sorry.
Because the show is very good and very important. It ran for 8 seasons and has gotten 2 movies since being taken off the air. I mean, people
Jeopardy
love it.
ran for 30 years.
Jeopardy's
but I don't
popular,
think
man.
But I don't think it's a great show.
It's a very
That's
great
okay,
show.
though. Here's the thing, though. That's the beauty about humor. Humor is very subjective. I can't sit there and watch that show. It just doesn't do it.
Or Friends.
The Friends, too. I don't find Friends very funny. Here's the thing, though. Like, if I get one little chuckle out of what's supposed to be a comedy show out of a half an hour or an hour, to me, that says that it's just not hitting my funny bone the way it hits other people's funny bone. And that's okay. I can watch something like Community, and I'm hitting big laugh after big laugh, and it's just really tight, well-written episodes that it just hit my sense of humor in the perfect way that I laugh out loud. And I know people that have watched it, and they go, yeah, I didn't get it. I went, that's fine. Like, it's sad. I wish you did, because I find it extremely funny, but it's okay. Like, I understand that.
Yep. And that's funny because Community does not make me LOL very often. I don't laugh out loud, which is why I like it, though, because of the witty smartness. I just kind of go like, heh, I get you. That's anyway, it's just different. Yeah, so it hits people differently. Anyway, so we watched that. We were excited about Peacock, all the new stuff coming out there. It was less than what I expected. That? I like that it's free.
Okay, so you're just doing the free one.
We paid for the premium so we can get access to the originals, but Psych the Movie 2 is free. And the originals coming up. The real reason we got is because AP Bio, again, a show I've talked about before, season 3 is airing exclusively on Peacock. And so to get access to that, we needed to have premium. And we got to pay up front for it, $30 for the whole year. So that way we get access to the exclusive content that you don't always get. But I mean, it works really, really well. We tried to watch some movies on it just to see what the ads were like. They play all the ads up front for movies. So you get like 2 minutes of ads and then you get the whole movie. So it's not interrupted.
That's not a bad way to do it.
No, I love that way of doing it. With TV shows, I think it was in the middle. I think it starts you off and then you kind of get a typical ad break like you would if you were watching a show, but it's just one instead of 2 or 3 different ad breaks in a half-hour comedy. So
Rita signed us up for it. So she could watch the Psych movie or the Psych 2 movie or whatever Psych number movie we're on now. And we're not paying for it. We're just doing the free version because I was like, I don't want to pay for it. I feel like there's not going to be any big exclusives that are going to be high quality. That's going to be like something like, ooh, you need to see for a little while. So it needs to impress me. You know, come up with a bunch of stuff that makes me say, oh, I want to pay for this.
Yeah, that was how we felt about upgrading to the ad-free. It wasn't worth it, because all the shows that are on Peacock are also still on Prime, Netflix, and Hulu. And so I can still watch Parks and Rec and The Office and all of those shows on my other streaming services.
For now, right?
Yeah, until they're done at the end of like 2021 or something like that. So anyway, I like Peacock. It suits me. I just like NBC though. I'm an NBC whore, and I always will be. I mean, all you gotta say, like all they had to say to me to get me to sign up was, "We're getting TV shows from Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, Michael Schur," and I was like, "Okay, if you're getting all them and Mindy Kaling, I'm in. I'll pay for it to get premium content from those creators." So that was one big thing. The other really big thing that happened for me this week was I defeated. Did I defeat it or did I just beat The Last of Us 2? I just beat it.
Yep.
I don't know if I defeated it because defeating it makes me feel like I did a better job than I did. I survived The Last of Us 2. We'll say it like that. And more on that later. And it was funny because I told Jesse, I was like, okay, I really want to beat this game before Ghost of Tsushima comes out because I know I really want to play that. So I'm going to play it for a few hours this week and get things rolling. And then one night I started at like 7, right when I put the kids down. And I texted her at like 10 and I was like, hey, almost done. And then I came to bed at 1:30 having finally beaten the game. And I don't know the last time I had a video game session anywhere near that long. I was enthralled.
Good times.
So anyway, other than that, this week we just kind of hung out. We did go to the mall. We wanted to go to the Disney store, but they shut back down. They'd been open here for about a month, and they shut back down, so that was disappointing. Emmy literally cried in the middle of the mall. She was so sad.
Really?
Yeah. She really, really wanted to go to the Mickey and Minnie store, is what she calls it, and so she was devastated. But, yeah, we just kind of hung out and went some places, got some gelato. One of our favorite places burned down. Like, that's kind of weird, but it burned down last year. And I would not be surprised if it was an inside job, because their new location is sick. And I was like, well, I'm pretty sure the insurance money went somewhere. And anyway, not to be a conspiracy theorist, but the new location is awesome, and it's delicious. Okay. And that was pretty much, I mean, we watched What We Do in the Shadows. Jesse had never seen that movie. Yeah, Jesse had never seen it, so we watched it. It was on YouTube TV, so we caught that. And kind of got to see where Taika got his kind of solo film, not solo, but where he really branched out and did his own thing with his comedy, and that was fun. Other than that, that was pretty much it, man.
Wow. Now that I'm thinking back about my week, I think I had an okay week, pretty good week. Let's see here. I've got a new chair. I'm sitting in a brand new chair. The chair I had, I bought originally because I was like, ooh, it's a gamer chair, and I needed a better office chair than what I was using. And I bought like a cheap, I don't know, $125 kind of gaming chair. And the problem is that it's not completely flat where you sit. It has these like little wings that kind of like help kind of contour and make it look cool or whatever. The problem is either the chair is too narrow, or in the most likely scenario, my hips are too wide. And if I sit in that thing for 9 hours during the workday, and then 3 to 4 hours in the evening streaming, recording a podcast, whatever have you, my hips were just killing me. Like I was putting pillow after pillow on the thing
to
try
confirm.
to kind of boost.
Can confirm his butt has been in pain.
It's true. It's very true. And I just sat there and I was complaining about it. And we had a meeting a little while ago at work, the management meeting, and we were just kind of talking about how long this COVID situation could be before we get a vaccine, before that vaccine is actually distributed to the masses. Because at first, a vaccine's going to come. It'll go to the hospital workers, nurses, doctors, emergency services, right? Like EMTs, firemen, police officers, that sort of thing. It's going to take a while to trickle down. So I started thinking about that, and we're talking, and we said, it's probably like I could easily be working from home a year from now. And I went, if I have to work from home for another year every day in this chair that hurts me, like I was like, no, I can't tolerate this. That's not going to work. So I ordered a chair. Last week the chair arrived. I put it together. It's comfortable. It's wide enough. There's no weird little wings to try to make me feel all gamerified.
Nice.
It does have a little massaging like lumbar support that I can plug into a USB
fancy.
And I can turn on. It's not great. It just kind of vibrates at some different speeds, but it's something. I mean, it's kind of cool. So I did that. This last week, I was a guest host on the Good Morning Guys podcast. They had me over there. It was a great time. We were talking about kind of the rise in nerd culture, and also a little bit about kind of how nerd culture's changed from what it used to be to now being so popular that like everyone's grandmother goes and sees, you know, the big Avenger movies, right?
Yeah.
And so we talked about that. It was a lot of fun. I definitely would love to get some of them to come over here and do something with us, or go back and do something with them at some point again. It was just like old friends hanging out. It was a good time.
Nice.
I also beat The Last of Us 2. More on that later.
Did.
More on that later. Let's see what else happened. Oh, we made plans, Matt. Later this week, matter of fact, the day this podcast releases, I will not be at home. I will not be working. I will be in the Yellowstone National Park.
Cool.
We decided to take Thursday off. Friday's a Utah state holiday. It's Pioneer Day. And so Wednesday, late afternoon, we're going to drive up to West Yellowstone. And then we're staying in a hotel there. And we're going to go into the park Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then we'll drive back on Sunday. And we were kind of like looking for something to do. And it's like, well, we can go to National Park. And right now, the national parks still aren't allowing like foreign tourists in. So you still have to be like, local. And that means they're not allowing big tour buses through. So like park attendance is low. And Utah has the holiday, but Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, the surrounding states, they don't have a holiday that Friday. So we figured it might be a good weekend to go and do a bunch of stuff. We've got the kids excited about the Junior Ranger program where they can do like little science experiments and adventures, and they can earn a little patch at the end of it. So
cool, man.
Yeah, we're excited. Excited to do something that gets us out of the house and we can make some memories, take some photos, and it's not going to cost an arm and a leg. And we're going to be able to be outside, so we'll be able to be socially distanced from people, or we'll be driving in our car as you kind of do at Yellowstone. And so, yeah.
Are you staying at a hotel? Did I miss that?
Yeah, we're going to stay at a hotel.
Okay.
So we're staying at a Best Western right in the heart of West Yellowstone.
Cool.
So, yeah, it'll be fun. So we're looking forward to that. I'm trying to think what else has been going on here. I mean, that's kind of the gist of it. Oh, I did go into the office tonight.
Hey-o.
This was the 4th time in 4 months I've been to the office. I had to go in to do a firewall changeover. Basically, pull out the old firewall, put in a new firewall, and help our network engineer test it, make sure everything was working. And so it took us about an hour and a half. And everything's going good. So it was kind of different sitting down in my office again at my desk. I was like, oh, yeah. Okay. Because I just don't go in unless I absolutely need to. And then it's only for like an hour or two at a time. Yeah. So, I mean, in the last 4 months, I think I've been in 4 times for maybe a grand total of about 8 hours tops. Maybe like 2 hours each trip.
Right.
So... yeah, so that was different. That was out of the norm.
Totally.
Not my usual thing. The beard is still growing.
It's strong too.
Yeah, it's starting to drop down and get some length on it. So we're still going there, and then still streaming on Twitch. That's still going well. Twitch.tv/FortofNerds79. This week is kind of weird. Last week was kind of weird. I think because of just a bunch of random stuff. I didn't end up streaming at all last week because I had to work one night, and then I recorded a podcast, and then the internet was out, and then I was like, dang it, I gotta just finish The Last of Us 2.
Yep.
And then this week, tomorrow night would be my only night to stream, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to because I still have to pack and get ready for the trip. So,
yeah. Awesome. Not bad problems to have, man.
Not bad problems to have. Spending time with my family is a good
That's
thing.
awesome.
Well, with that being said, I think we need to kill some Bothans.
Let's do it.
I always have to let you know, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
All right, Matt. Bothans have been killed for our Rebel Intelligence pleasure. Matt, what do you have?
Well, I've got some news about our old friend Joe Exotic.
Ooh.
So, Animal Planet just released a trailer for its upcoming Tiger King documentary. And it's called Surviving Joe Exotic. And this was filmed 4 months before Joe Exotic's arrest. And they claim to have a bunch of new footage, tons of new interviews, more with the people that actually worked there. And then they follow kind of the day-to-day maintenance of the animals. So we'll get a more insightful look as to what his compound was really like. what it was really like for the animals and those that took care of them, and less drama about him and his husbands and deaths and his country music, which was all amazing.
Oh, super entertaining.
But so this is going to be just a kind of a regular documentary, just one-off documentary, not a series of episodes. They haven't mentioned how long it's going to be, but tune into Animal Planet next week.
Okay, so let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Why would they wait this long?
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean,
I
if
don't know.
they had all this stuff recorded before he went to prison, don't you think that as soon as they heard that Netflix was going to put out their docu-series on him, don't you think that they, especially once the pandemic started hitting, don't you think they should have said, like, hey, let's make sure this is locked and loaded. That way, if the Netflix thing becomes huge and blows up, we can wait till like 3 weeks after when it's not dying down, but like it's starting to trail off.
Yeah.
And then, bam, hey, guess what? We have a documentary. Like, the problem is, I really, really enjoyed the docu-series on Netflix. That was 4 months ago.
Yeah.
Now it's like, okay, what are you going to tell me that's really new? Oh, I get to see how the animals are treated? Sure, okay, but that's not why I watched the docu-series on Netflix. It was because of this crazy Oklahoman gay zookeeper that was involved in a murder-for-hire plot.
Right.
That's it's just massive drama. That's why
Yep.
I paid attention to it.
Yep.
Not because of the tigers.
And maybe that's why they waited to temper expectations. I don't know.
That's a bad call. That's a bad call, man. Eyeballs. If you got new content right now in the middle of this pandemic, get as many eyeballs on it as you can.
Obviously, it must not have been completed. I'm sure they would have done it sooner if they had known. But regardless, it's coming back, y'all. So get excited. More Tiger King, kind of.
More Tiger King, sort of.
Animal Planet version. So I expect it to be a lot more tame than what we saw on Netflix.
Yep. Speaking of eyeballs on things,
Okay.
we were looking forward to in our household, in the Fortress of Nerditude and nerddom worldwide, we were looking forward to the Disney Plus series Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Oh yeah.
We wanted to get our eyeballs glued to it. Now, however, we know that because of the coronavirus, lots and lots and lots of Hollywood productions were shut down. Falcon and the Winter Soldier was supposed to release around August. That was the date that they were shooting for. Well, let's just say that they really haven't filmed anything or much on it yet. That they had to, close down all production back in March, and they're not shooting right now. So it's official that the Falcon and Winter Soldier is going to be delayed for Disney Plus. Which means no matter in what way, shape, or form WandaVision or Loki was, those were all supposed to kind of take place in a certain sequential order.
Yeah, we're screwed.
So that means those are all going to get pushed back as well. Now, we don't know. If I were to say, Matt, everything on the docket gets pushed back a year. We're hitting the pause button, everything gets pushed back a year, and we're going to just suffer without a lot of new content for a year. That's okay. In the grand scheme of things, first world problems, we're okay, right?
Yes.
But we don't know how long that delay actually is.
Yeah.
If they could say like, hey, we're gonna delay for a year, but no one knows because we're in the middle of this worldwide pandemic and we just have no clue when we're gonna be able to go about business as usual again, when there's going to be a vaccine, when there's going to be a better treatment to minimize, we just don't know these things. And so sadly, something like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, something like, WandaVision, Black Widow, the movie, Loki, Mandalorian Season 2, all these things in kind of this realm of the MCU, Disney Plus, whatever, are going to get pushed back, and we're just going to have to wait. And that's sad, but it's just kind of where we're at.
Yeah, I do. I think that Mando 2 is done. I don't think we're going to wait for that. I think that's going to come out this fall.
That's what they're still saying, and I think principal photography on it's probably done, but I don't know how much post work they're doing and how much post work they can do.
Well, we'll see. I am optimistic about Mandalorian, not optimistic about anything else as it pertains to the Disney Plus shows, which is really sad, including High School Musical, the musical, the series, season 2.
High School Musical, the musical, the series, the musical season 17 is going to be coming just around the corner.
I hope you're right, man. I hope you're right,
now,
but I don't think so.
Here's one other thing, Matt, that I'm still holding on to. This is the fanboy in me. This is the I want. If we're waiting, that date for when Disney can actually do something with the characters Daredevil, The Punisher, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, we're getting closer to that date rolling around on a calendar, so maybe we'll come out of this global pandemic and then they'll be able to start, working on some of that stuff as well. Never know. Just
there's
the fanboy in me
holding
out hope.
Man. Lots of possibilities. Speaking of possibilities,
ooh, it's nice.
It's not that great of a transition.
No. I want to hear it.
Let's stick to Disney Plus and Marvel, and let's switch over to Hawkeye.
Okay.
So Marvel's Hawkeye on Disney Plus, the series that's coming with Jeremy Renner. It's not bad news. It's just regular news. They have added 3 directors to direct a, quote, block of episodes for the 6-episode season. So my guess is they have found the 3 directors that are going to be doing this show. I think that's basically what they're trying to tell us. I don't know. You don't tell 3 directors they have a block, or that they each have a block of episodes, and it's only 6 episodes. So I think we've got our 3, and they are Amber Finlayson, Katie Elwood, and Rice Thomas. Do any of those names mean anything to you when you hear them?
No.
Yeah, same here. Let's learn a little bit more, shall we? Finlayson and Elwood are better known by their pen names Bert and Bertie. They're a filmmaking duo who just did the coming-of-age comedy Troop Zero on Amazon, which premiered at Sundance last year. So they're pretty dang new to the scene. They recently did some episodes of a Hulu comedy drama series called The Great, which I've never seen, but so that's pretty much all we have on them. Then you've got Rice Thomas, and this is so interesting to me. He has worked on sketches for Saturday Night Live over the course of his career. He made a film in 2015 called Staten Island Summer. It was a digital download, apparently. Then he went to work on Amazon comedy series called Comrade Detective. And then he also worked on the John Mulaney and the Sack Lunch Bunch comedy special on Netflix. So these are pretty unknown individuals that have been chosen here.
I think the word you're looking for is nobodies.
Yeah, they're kind of nobodies. I mean, I'll say that I liked John Mulaney and the Sack Lunch Bunch on Netflix. I thought it was very funny, but that's because John Mulaney is a comedian doing a special, not because the direction was fantastic. So yeah, we're getting 3 real nobodies, real unknowns that are going to be in charge of the Hawkeye series. Super interesting to me. Well, we go to Mandalorian and it's like, now we know who they are and they've done great things. And so maybe it'll be something similar here with Hawkeye. Maybe we'll watch this and we'll go, wow, these are really good. And then we'll get to know them and they'll do more. I don't know. We'll see. But there you go. 3 directors, 3 unknowns. Wow.
Huh. Okay. Well, I would like to say that I'm excited by that news.
But you're not, and neither am I.
No, I'm not.
But it's news, and we get to report the news here. The nerd news.
Beep, 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 beep. This just in. No one cares about the Hawkeye show. No one. I'll tell you about something, though, that people do care about, Matt.
Okay.
Nintendo and Legos.
Me like both.
Yep. Me like is a great English sentence, by the way.
Okay. Yeah,
so,
I know that, but...
if me speak English, that's impossible. So... I've been doing Legos lately. I've been doing some Legos with the boys, streaming on Twitch, and I'm always in the market for something really cool, really unique with Legos. Well, Legos are doing some stuff with the Super Mario sets, like you can get like Mario and Luigi and whatever. Those are coming out, but now they have announced a partnership with Nintendo to show off what appears to be a almost perfect replica of the original NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System. And it comes complete with a controller that you can plug in. It also has a cartridge that you put together. And then here's the thing. You also build an old school, like, cathode ray tube television that has a little wheel that you wind. But inside this television is a little scrolling kind of Lego screen of Mario, and he jumps over some stuff and kind of bounces up and down. Is it perfect? No, but it looks so freaking like authentic to the real deal. It's 2,646 pieces.
Oh, I thought you were going to say dollars.
Oh, no. Yeah, so it's a little under 2,700 pieces to recreate the NES, the controller, and this TV. It's gonna come out at $230.
Okay.
So it's kind of being geared towards adults who still like Legos and definitely kind of that retro vibe. I look at this and this is something I go, I really like the look at this. This is way cool. Here's the problem though. At $230, I wish they would have gone the extra step further to have included a mini NES Classic inside of it so that you could have then like plugged in an HDMI, plugged it into your TV, and actually played it. Like, it looks fantastic. It's a complete replica. I get that, but to have the ability to actually have it play a real game and not just kind of simulate the game on this little television, I think would have been that one extra step that you could have charged another $100 and I would have jumped at it and said like, look, I can recreate this Lego thing and still play it as a NES Classic. I would have done that. Right. At $230 without that feature, I kind of go, it's just a big Lego set. I mean, I want it, but I don't know if I want it for $230.
Totally. Goodness.
It's awesome. Indeed.
Look,
it is
awesome. I've looked at it and I watched the little video or looked at the pictures, I guess. Oh my gosh. Yep. It looks awesome, guys. Like it's cool.
So cool.
It looks so cool.
I just wish you could play it.
Yeah. I get that. I do. I get that. Oh man. It's so expensive, but it's so cool. Anyway, That's so cool. Okay. Those are some interesting bits of news.
Yeah. There's part of me, Matt, that really wants that thing, but
yeah.
I just don't think I can pull the trigger on it.
I definitely will not be pulling the trigger, but I want to.
Yeah, I hear you. That's all I had. Did you have anything else?
No, I'm out.
Okay. So last week we had a mega episode of the Fortress of Nerditude. We had Brita and Jesse join us, which was a lot of fun to do. And we talked about Hamilton. We talked about the musical that's, been sweeping the nation for like 5 years now, and it was on Disney Plus. And we asked the Super Friends for the question of the week, what are your top 3 favorite Hamilton questions? And Matt, I will have you know that I also tweeted directly Lin-Manuel Miranda to ask him if he'd like to weigh in on what are his 3 favorite.
Yeah.
And I got some exciting news. I got some really exciting news.
Sure.
We had a lot of turnout from the Super Friends for answers this week, but no Lin-Manuel Miranda. Sorry.
Oh, man.
Sorry. Honestly, like, I kind of did that tongue in cheek because I was like, okay, that's like saying, like, which one of your children is your favorite?
Sure.
Like, there's no way he answers that.
Right.
There's probably no way he even reads my tweet. However,
Maybe.
I've had some luck with some celebrities in the past. I got retweeted by Damon John and Barbara Corcoran from the Shark Tank group.
Wow.
A couple years back ago. I saw something online that said Shark Week, and I mistakenly thought it said Shark Tank Week, and I got all excited.
Oh.
And then I let them know my displeasure, and I was sad. And like Mark Cuban and like all of them that were on it, like retweeted me. Barbara Corcoran responded to me. She's like, "Oh, that would be a great idea." Da, da, da. So like, that's happened. And then a couple years ago, Yvette Nicole Brown responded to a tweet of mine. I was asking about the little claymation figures from Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas and how they had all the other ones except for one of her as baby Shirley.
Yeah.
And I just said, did I miss it? Is this available? And she took some time and was great and responded back and said that how, as an artist, they like to be able to control their likenesses, and she was very uncomfortable with having something like that made because, you know, in the show she's just in a diaper and
right.
she wanted to control. And I was like, oh, I totally understand. I was like, I appreciate you taking your time. Da, 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 da. So I have a track record of getting some celebrities to respond to some tweets, but no Lin-Manuel Miranda, sorry.
Well, you know, now, you get what you get.
I will say, if he does, by any stretch of the crazy imagination, respond at some point in the future, I will then bring it up and we can talk about it on the podcast.
Wonderful.
But we did get a lot of responses from the Super Friends, so let's go to the Super Friends who did chime in this week. We're going to start over on the email like we always do, forwardofnerd@gmail.com. We've got Peter Christensen. He says, Dear Nerds, my big news for the week is that I got AirPods Pro headphones.
Ooh.
They're outstanding. The ability to switch between noise canceling and transparency is great, and transparency does a pretty good job of mixing outside sounds with your audio so you're not shut out from the world. I did hear some MP3 audio artifacts in episode 190. I don't know if that's because the headphones are better or if there was an audio quality issue. Highly recommend the AirPods Pro. I will say...
Wow, I'm offended and frustrated. How dare you?
Well, you may want to dial that back a little bit, Matt. You may just...
I'm just teasing, man. We had 4 people, 3 microphones. It was probably a crazy experience.
We got 4 people and 3 microphones. Where's that? Honestly, it was Britta's microphone for some reason wasn't picking her up quite clearly, and it kept changing the audio level on her, and she was trying to manually adjust it to kind of keep it centered. And so at sometimes she would get really loud, other times quieter, and there was just a bunch of staticky artifacts that kind of were on her audio track that I tried to clean up the best I could, and things happen. Life finds a way, to quote Dr. Ian Malcolm. So I don't disagree, Peter, that I'm sure your headphones are probably amazing. But we'll say maybe a little bit of both. Maybe the better quality headphones and the fact that I know an audio track on our side wasn't great. So, yeah. Moving on, because I feel bad. I'd like to add to Jude Law's bad guy credentials that he played Vortigern in King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. He betrayed his king and took over the kingdom and repeatedly sacrificed his loved ones to gain access to dark magic. That movie is a little odd, but good fantasy action and worth giving a try. I say to give it a try because no one has watched this movie. For both Disney's quest to remake everything and Ready Player 2's 90s nostalgia, I recommend Disney's Gargoyles cartoon show. It doesn't risk tarnishing a beloved property. Its darker content is more suitable to modern digital characters, and it would be straight up awesome. Now, back to Hamilton. 2 weeks ago, I knew 3 things about Alexander Hamilton. The $10 bill, the Got Milk commercial, and that people haven't shut up about this musical for 5 years. After being elbows deep in the music since then, I vaguely recall the discussion in high school American history about the federal government taking on states' debts, but I couldn't have volunteered that without the play reteaching it to me. But now I'm in deep. I know most of the songs, and my family has watched it several times. Some thoughts. The first time through, I didn't have a favorite, as I said last week. Now, Daveed Diggs is lapping the field as my runaway favorite. He plays 2 of the best characters, Lafayette and Jefferson. He can sing and dance in multiple styles. He's the fastest rapper, and he's just so cool. Anyone who wants to claim that America isn't racist has to explain why Daveed Diggs hasn't been in TV and movies nonstop since Hamilton came out. In fairness, he has done some stuff. He was on a TV show for quite a while.
Well, he was, like I mentioned, he was on Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Yeah, that too. I think, I'm trying to remember there's another show he was on. Anyway, Peter goes on and says, Lin-Manuel Miranda is a great actor and rapper, but his singing voice is just so weak. I love My Shot, but it's kind of hard to get through the first part when he's singing. It was a small part, but I love Ep.191 with what he did with Hercules Mulligan. And no, I didn't just write this so I could hear you try to pronounce his name. The male characters are fun, but Angelica and Eliza are the powerhouses of the film, and I hope to both see these actresses and that those people become better known parts of American history. I'm sure I just completely destroyed that. Anyway, his favorite songs. Guns and Ships, no question. It's high energy. I love fast raps, and Lafayette is one cocky SOB. Non-stop. I like it better than My Shot to show Hamilton's determination and ability because it's everyone on the outside observing it rather than him saying it. Kind of like how you can't give yourself a nickname. Someone else has to give it to you. Who lives, who dies, who tells your story. I think one of the lasting effects of this play will be to change the way people perceive American history, and this song celebrates that. Plus, it honors Eliza's life after Alexander died. The story of tonight. It perfectly captures the feeling of friendship, camaraderie, and ambition of young men devoted to a cause and to each other. I also give Hamilton an A+. This is the musical of the decade that broke into mainstream consciousness beyond Broadway nerds. I've watched it several times and listened to the soundtrack a lot over the last 2 weeks, and I'm surprised how many new things I pick up each time. It's dense, rich, and satisfying, and is a milestone in culture. Cheers, Peter Christensen. I want to go back to, he talks about the story of tonight, where he says it kind of captures the feeling of friendship, camaraderie, and ambition of the young men devoted to each other in the cause.
Yeah.
It's interesting because that song, that scene, is something that Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote, and he was thinking of a book series by one of my favorite authors, Patrick Rothfuss, from the Kingkiller Chronicles, the first book, The Name of the Wind, where the hero of the book, the protagonist, Kavoth, is at university, and he's hanging out with his friends Will and Sim and Manette, and they were at the Aeolian. They're this, it's basically kind of this tavern that supports the arts and the music, and Kavoth can play the lute, and they're all hanging out together, and Lin-Manuel Miranda has said that when he was writing this, he was thinking of that scene and the camaraderie between the friends and everything. And of course, then, Patrick Rothfuss is a huge fan of Lin-Manuel Miranda, and they're trying to get a TV show adaptation and possibly a movie adaptation for these books. And Lin-Manuel Miranda has signed on to do the music because these books have a lot of music in it. And so I just wanted to bring that out because it's one of my favorite book series, and it ties into Hamilton and Lin-Manuel Miranda, and specifically this song. It's a cool little bit of a nerd Gosh, that's wonderful. All right, let's move on. We don't have any on Facebook, but we do have a number over on Twitter, which is at Fort of Nerd. We're going to start with Bernabe Butters at Dantes_Belmont. He said, hard questions. Changes all the time. Today's top 3. In 3rd, Guns and Ships. In 2, What Did I Miss? And number 1, Yorktown. Immigrants. We get the job done.
Nice.
On my favorites, you'll be other of his favorites. You'll Be Back, Cabinet Battles, 10 Dual Commandments, and One Last Time, and the remix, and the Weird Al Yankovic polka, and the mixtape. All of it.
Nice.
And he also asked if Lin-Manuel Miranda wanted to contribute. We're still waiting. Bernabe. 846. I Can't Breathe at D-Spin 67 says easy. Alexander Hamilton. 10 Dual Commandments, and Cabinet Battle.
Nice. Okay.
MLS Chop at MLS Chop says 1, Satisfied.
Yeah.
2, Guns and Ships. 3, Yorktown, and he says this changes on a daily basis. Eric Gifford at Eric Bob G, our brother-in-law, says 1, Satisfied. 2, Satisfied. 3, Satisfied.
I say he's satisfied.
I think he's satisfied with Satisfied.
I think he is.
The Infinity Bros at _Infinity_Bros_ says, You'll Be Back, What Comes Next, and I Know Him. So basically all 3 of the King George songs. I love it. I know him. That can't be. That's that little man that talked to me. Okay, Nathan at Voiced by Nathan says, You'll Be Back, History Has Its Eyes on You, and It's Quiet Uptown. Honorable mention, The Room Where It Happened. So many good songs, though.
Yeah, it's hard, man. It's hard.
And then let's go over to Instagram, where we've got Pierce Nuts, and he says, number 1, Dear Theodosia. Number 2, Dear Theodosia. Number 3,
oh my gosh.
Dear Theodosia. Which
wow.
I'll tell you what. I want to say thank you to the Super Friends for coming out this week and coming with so many answers, so many different songs. Like, I feel like we got a real good smattering of songs that also happened to go along with some of the songs we picked and some of the other songs we didn't pick.
You know, it was quite the variety. That's such a hard question. Jesse was listening to the soundtrack this week, and I was like, "Oh, I like this song. Oh, I like this song. Oh, this song's better." And it's just impossible. So you just move on and
so good,
and realize it doesn't really matter.
Now, Matt, you asked another question. This was not the question of the week, but you asked a question.
Oh yeah, I did.
Do you remember what question you asked?
Yeah, anime. Teach me anime.
Yeah,
thing.
you said, I want to know some about anime. What should I know? And I told you that you opened up the floodgates and that Bernabe was going to...
oh my gosh.
And I'm going to say he didn't go crazy.
Get me the short version and then send me the long one.
Okay, so he says, I believe Matt likes dark stuff. Try Death Note. The original anime. Do not watch the live action adaptation. Okay. If you want something more action-adventure and still a little dark, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Both on Netflix, last time I checked. Brian at Bravesby says he thought Death Note was brilliant. And then they argued a little bit over whether that was the anime or the live action, and then they realized it's both the live action that they were discussing.
That's like that episode of Community when they're trying to figure out which bar, and they're talking about the same bar to go to, but they don't realize they're talking about the same bar.
Right,
anyway.
Yes. What do they call that?
The Red Door in L Street.
Yeah, Red Door in L Street. You mean Douche Street? Yes.
Yeah.
And then we got also a response from Will Erskine. Let me see here. At W.A. Erskine. He says, I second the 2 anime that Bernabe said, so that's Death Note and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. He said, and both are on Netflix. Cowboy Bebop is a good starting place and is on Hulu. I'm also enjoying My Hero Academia about a superhero school, and it's on Hulu.
Wow. All right. Thank you for your responses. I wasn't expecting to get actual responses. Nobody ever answers my little secret question.
Matt, the Super Friends came through for you this week.
Yeah, they did.
Honestly, like there's a week we could go back to when we were asking for, like, I don't know, best cartoons of, each decade, and we kind of talked about that. And I don't know if you remember, but Bernabe literally came with a list that was like 40 things long, and they were all anime.
Yeah.
So
I remember.
Dip your toes in carefully, Matt. That's all I'm going to say.
I will. I've heard of those, so I know that they must be relatively. I don't know how to say it.
I know them.
Normal?
It can't be.
Yes.
That's that little anime that talked to me.
Oh, dear goodness.
All right, Matt. How can the Super Friends help us this week?
Well, thank you again, Super Friends, for all that you do, for listening to us, for interacting with us, answering our questions, answering my little question every once in a while. Thank you, thank you, thank you. As always, like, subscribe, comment, etc. Do what you do and enjoy what you do. And then this week, what you can do is don't listen to Spencer and watch Psych. Watch Psych and report back if you think it's a funny show. And you got to get a couple episodes in. Somebody name me a show that hit it right off the bat.
Parks and Rec.
Not many. No, that hit it well. Parks and Rec is awful in the first season.
I don't know.
That for me, pilot I don't like great. It.
I thought that pilot was great, though.
Well, we've got an argument there, because that's the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of awful first seasons.
I didn't say first season. I said pilot. The pilot hit it off great.
That's fair. Anyway, and you know what? Just enjoy each other's company, smile, wave, and wear a mask. That's it.
Nice, Matt. Thank you. So, before we get to our discussion, I want to speak to Peter Christensen and any other listener that doesn't play video games. We are going to talk about a current video game tonight as our discussion, and we are going to do a spoiler cast. We're going to talk about the game, but we're going to talk about the story, and we're going to talk to a lot of the things surrounding the game, and we're going to talk about The Last of Us 2. I would suggest that if you like story, if you like good narratives, if you like, things of that nature, whether that's in TV or books and you're not a video game player, stick around for this conversation, because this conversation, I have a feeling, me personally, because of how I feel about it, is going to be less about the gameplay and the console and like technical stuff and more about the story, the narrative, choices that were made. And I think you might find it interesting. With all that also being said, if you are playing The Last of Us Part 2 or are about to play The Last of Us Part 2, this is going to contain all the spoilers. I'm warning you now, so you have fair warning to turn this off and not have us spoil it for you. I understand that this game has been around for a little while. It released, over a month ago now? You've had time. People are out there talking about it. There was spoilers that happened beforehand. We'll get into that as well. But I'm telling you now, we're going to spoil this. I can't say it enough. So if you're going to play it, please pause this and come back to this episode. Otherwise, if you're not going to, stick around. I think it'll be a fun conversation. Matt, you and I both finished The Last of Us Part 2. And funny enough, we have not talked since we finished it. And when we were playing it at the same time and we were together over the 4th of July weekend, we talked about kind of where we were in the game, but we never, like how far we were, just kind of like gauging each other's progress.
Yep.
But we never actually talked about the game itself or the story, because you were further ahead than I was, and you didn't want to say anything that would spoil, and vice versa. So we actually have not talked about the content of this game and the story at all. So I'm really excited to do this.
Man, me too.
I will say that for fairness and transparency, I played The Last of Us, the first game, the remastered version, on the PlayStation 4 probably in 2015. And I played it. I've played that game through 3 or 4 times. But they were all like 2015, 2016-ish, right around that era. I have not played that game since then. It's easily been 4 years since the last time I played it. You came in a little different because you played The Last of Us and finished that like literally like a week maybe before The Last of Us 2? So something real close, right?
2 weeks before, yeah.
So you're going to have the perception of coming from rolling right from one to the next. Mine's going to be a little more memory based on kind of the first game going into the second game.
Yep.
So, let's see. There's so much to unpack on this. There's so much to talk about this. Let's start off at the beginning, where I think The Last of Us 2 did something really brilliant, where they kind of, through some flashbacks, took us back to the kind of ending of the first game, gave us some context of what had happened prior to this game in order to kind of help maybe jog the memory of gamers. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, and they had to. It's been years and years and years. Can't expect everyone to have played it as freshly as I had.
So we're going to continue a game in a post-apocalyptic world where the Cordyceps fungus has infected people and basically turned a lot of people into zombies. I mean, they're not zombies, right? They're called infected. They're very specific not to kind of, classified as zombies, but this fungus has infected people's brains, and it makes some people super hyper aggressive, and they run at you and they feast on, bodies and rip apart you. Yeah. Then there's a version that are called the clickers, where the fungus has kind of exploded their head open a little bit and taken over, and they're blind, and so they make this clicking sound, and they use echolocation to try to find people, prey, you. Then there's the bloaters, which are the bigger versions where the fungus has secreted more and made them harder to kill. These are all the stuff from the first game. You're living in this world that if you get bit by one of these things, you're going to get infected, you're going to turn, and you're going to become one of them. Except in the first game, we got this girl, Ellie, who's bit and has been bit for a couple weeks and is immune. She is not showing any signs, because usually you turn within a day or two. And so in the first game, you play as Joel, who is a smuggler who's going to get her from Boston to Salt Lake City, where this group of the Fireflies, they're this kind of, a group that's trying to help resist all the lockdowns and the quarantines. They're trying to look for a cure. And as Joel, you're going to shepherd her across the country. Joel lost his daughter. He grows to really love and care for Ellie and looks at her as a surrogate daughter. You end up getting to Salt Lake City, and you realize that the only way to extract the infection that Ellie has that makes her immune is going to kill her. And you've come to love her and care for her, and you view her like your surrogate daughter that you lost. And Joel makes a decision not to sacrifice Ellie. And then on top of that, when Ellie asks why, what happened, Joel makes the decision to lie to her and tell her that they had plenty of people that were immune and they didn't need her after all, because he doesn't want her to know that he could have sacrificed her and that she was the only one, but he couldn't do it because he's ashamed of himself. That's the way the first game ends. This game picks up 5 years later. And it right out of the gate, Matt, I gotta say, like, they kind of bring you back into this world, but they start off and you realize, like, it's been 5 years. Ellie she's you know, she's not like the 13-year-old she was in the first game.
Mm-hmm.
And she's struggling a bit with some of the things that happened, right? Wouldn't you say that's a fair kind of...
Yeah. Well, it's a whole different world now. I mean, the way that I'm trying to remember how we're even introduced to the game at the beginning, other than through the flashbacks. But you're in Jackson. You're in like a city.
Yeah, Jackson,
like
Wyoming.
People, and there's like you and Joel. And everybody, and Tommy, Joel's brother, and you've got a community that's working. And she's struggling with what's happened in the past, but she's also struggling with what is happening now.
Yeah.
What is life, and who is she? And there's just, just normal human things in addition to human apocalyptic things that are going on. And you're immediately reminded in this game that it's an apocalypse, it's scary, it's dark, it's brutal, and it's tense. I mean, there are very few moments in this game where there is levity or any feeling of relaxation.
Right.
Even in the moment to moment when they're in Jackson, it's still tense. Who's going to go on the rounds and who's going to go to the different outposts and make sure everything's clear and there's no infected and there's no stragglers of human beings that are out there. And I mean, it's a dark, bleak world, and you're immediately reminded of that. It's beautiful. But it is terrifying too.
Yep. I think Naughty Dog does a real good job of throughout this game, throughout the first game, of making you realize that there's still beauty in the world, but at the same time, the world is so dangerous, so dark, and the fate of humanity is so dire.
Yeah.
And they don't sugarcoat it. I will say this as we kind of go along through this. I felt that this game was more brutal, more devastating emotionally than the first game. Like, I just found this game to be an emotional roller coaster that when it was over, I just felt drained.
Right. Yep.
I don't know if you had that same experience, but I
can
know I
agree
did.
with that. I totally agree. And that's, I have a very complicated relationship already with The Last of Us 2. And I had a complicated relationship with The Last of Us as well, because I like scary stuff, but I don't like scary games.
Okay.
And you play the scary games sometimes, like this one, and I can't do it. I play with the lights on, man. Like, I get terrified. But I don't know. I'm trying to think of, devastation. When you look at there are, and let's go out the gate with this. We know that this game is polarizing. Yep. And we know that this game is polarizing because of the story that was told and the creative choices that Neil made, who created and directed this series and this game.
Right.
Definitely 100%. That's where the issues are coming. When you look at like Metacritic, for example, when you look at the critic score and then you look at the user score, it's like The Last Jedi. I mean, there is a massive dichotomy there.
Yeah, and we'll get to that because there's some reasons. We'll
definitely talk.
Yeah,
we'll talk about some of those moments and whether we agree with them or disagree with them. But regardless, like you feel with The Last Jedi, this is the story that was told. You don't get to tell the story as the player. Okay, sorry, that's not the way that Naughty Dog does this. It's their story to tell, and you in my opinion, you get the privilege of being a part of a fantastic story. And, do you want to kind of go through story elements and then kind of talk about what we enjoyed gameplay wise and favorite parts of the game and stuff like that?
Let's talk about some of the big story elements, because that's gonna I think help frame some of the other things we want to talk about. I think the big thing right up towards the beginning of the game. Now, I will say this: we knew going in that into this sequel, The Last of Us Part 2. Neil Druckmann made no bones about it. He said that the first game was Joel's story. The second game is going to be Ellie's story, which I think was fair enough to say that most fans probably figured that they were going to be playing as Ellie for the whole game, because you played essentially as Joel for the whole first game, except for like one
minor
level
part
where you played as Ellie. And in this game, you play as Ellie, and Joel is in it in the beginning. But pretty early on, Joel gets murdered.
Yeah.
Him and Tommy save a girl. Her name is Abby. They save this girl, Abby, from the infected that are coming after, this like horde of infected. And when they introduce themselves, Abby looks at him, and like you can tell that there's like this way that she looks at him. She knows this name. Yeah. And when they get back to safety, she says, "Oh, I've got some friends. We're staying here. It's safe. Let's get out of here." And they take him there, and as soon as they get there, those people grab Joel and Tommy, the two brothers, and Abby starts wailing away on Joel with a golf club.
Yeah.
And starts beating him. And, it switches over. You play as Ellie, but you end up playing as Ellie coming up on Joel. And Joel is laying on the ground. He's bleeding out of his head, his face, everywhere. It's brutal. And Ellie's screaming, "Get up, Joel, get up, Joel, get up, Joel." Because even though their relationship seems strained at the beginning of this game, she still cares for him, and you can see that. She still loves him and probably thinks of him as her surrogate father, like he thinks of her as the surrogate daughter, which was the relationship of the first game. And then they're like, "Abby, you just need to end this." And she takes one last whack where she basically impales the golf club into his brain and kills Joel. I don't know about you. I figured Joel was going to have to die in this game. I think his death really helps narratively push this game forward. I expected it. However, I didn't expect it to be as brutal as it was. Abby has some sort of vendetta, and she basically tortures him and drags it out as long as possible before she finishes him off. Now, this hurt me, and I haven't played the original game in like 4 years prior to seeing this. How was this moment for you, having just played the first game and rolled right into this one?
I completely expected it.
Okay.
Not that I won't say I wanted it, but I felt like for the story to progress, that needed to happen. Like, he's not too old. Like, you could have done like, well, he gets old and then he just stops going on the rounds. But that's not Joel. Joel's not going to get too old.
No, he's not going to retire. Yeah.
And look, what happened, what Joel did in Salt Lake City, he had, like, an atonement had to be made. Like, something had to happen to him. That you can't just get away with that.
Right.
And so to me, when it flashed and you got to see Abby with Owen and they're looking down at Jackson and they're saying, "Do you think he's there?" I knew exactly what was going to go. I knew exactly what was going on. And I expected from that moment on for Joel to die.
Yeah.
And I knew that when they immediately switched it up. Like, you played as Abby before that. Like, you're
Right.
playing as Abby when you run into Joel and Tommy.
Right. And you're playing
so
as Abby, like
immediately-
when you're learning how to play the game, like get the kind of the controls.
This is how you crouch, and this is how
to me,
you-
that said, hey, you're going to be playing as Abby.
So that was interesting to me, and I'll say this is interesting to me, and one of my favorite parts of the game, because of how that whole thing played out, with how intense that moment was when they're all chasing you and you're running away from a massive horde of infected. But I expected that to happen. I expected it to be brutal. Look, maybe I'm desensitized, and probably I am, but it didn't sicken me. But it made me really pissed. Like, I was so ready. I felt like Ellie in that moment, where I was like, I want to kill you more than I've ever wanted to kill somebody in a video game before. Like, so bad. I went into the bedroom after I played my first playthrough, and I was talking to Jesse, and I was literally like acting everything out. It's like, oh my gosh, this happened. Oh my gosh, this happened. I was laying down and on the floor like I was Abby, and Joel getting his head smashed in. So this is one of the things that the fans call out to that they hated. Killing off someone that they loved so much and that they invested so many hours of gameplay into. But I feel like they're missing the point. And we'll continue on with what I feel like people are missing, at least in my opinion.
So I've talked to some people since I finished the game that said that they were really, really upset that Joel dies, and that you're not going to get to play as Joel. Let's also go back and remember that this game was supposed to release in early March, and the pandemic hit, and there was still some crunch to try to get the game finished off. And then after a week or 2 weeks after announcing that it was going to be delayed, someone leaked the major story beats of the game. And one of the leaks was the fact that Joel was going to die pretty early on. And I'm going to be honest, I've gone back and looked at the leaks now that I've finished the game.
Yeah.
The leaks had it. And that's why Neil Druckmann and the voice actors like Ashley Johnson, Laura Bailey, these people came out and they said, like, it's sad. It's just sad that, that someone would do this, because listen, Naughty Dog tells amazing stories that just happen to be video games. And if you spoil something that big, you spoil the ending, you give away this major plot point. To me, if you read that before you play the game, it takes away the journey. And that's how I feel that every Naughty Dog game is. Whether we're talking the Uncharted games or the Last of Us games, it's not just the big thing that happens in the game that maybe reacts, gets you to react emotionally, but it's the journey that gets you there. All the little tiny decisions that lead you to that point.
Right.
And I go back to the first game, Matt. I have played that game multiple times. Every time I'm presented with the option of saving Ellie and killing the doctor at the end and scooping Ellie up in my arms and walking her out of the surgery room, I walk in, I pull out my pistol, I shoot the doctor in the head, I rush over to Ellie, I pick her up, and we walk out. Every single time, I don't even think about it, I make that choice.
Right.
Now, the reality is, I'm making that choice from an emotional place. I care about Ellie. I feel invested in her. I feel invested in the relationship between her and Joel. But if I'm being objective, allowing this one girl to die could potentially be the cure for millions of people and keep them from being infected and turning. It could turn the tide of humanity.
Right.
So, is Joel a hero to all of the civilization in that world? No, he is not. But is he our hero because of the journey we went on with him? I think the answer is yes. And someone said this to me. They said, okay, I know people, and I've talked to people that say, like, if I was Joel, I just would have let her die because it would have saved all humanity. Let me ask you this, Matt. Could you have done that? If you were Joel, could you have let Ellie die?
That's a tough question because, look, but I can tell you, if it were my actual child,
that was my next
I
question.
Could have done it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
If it were Ellie, I might have been able to do it.
So the thing is,
might have.
That's where I come and I'll say, if it was Emmy, your daughter, and we're in this situation, could you do that?
No.
And I think that's important to look at, because in Joel's mind, at this point, Ellie's his daughter.
Right.
That, emotionally, that's how he looks at it. And he can't differentiate the two, right? So it's all the little things that get you there. When we're in Last of Us 2 and Joel dies, I went, okay, I'm sad that I'm not going to get to play as Joel, because I love playing as Joel. But if he's around, how does Ellie's character grow? How do you tell a story that's going to be Ellie's story without Joel is like the constant, like, well, let's just go to Joel. Joel knows everything. He can fix it. They needed to remove him from the equation. It was brutal. It was raw. But narratively speaking, it made a lot of sense to me. Now, I know there's a lot of people that are just upset because they figured, Joel was going to be in this game as a playable character, that they were going to be Joel in some way, shape, or form, or it was going to be the two of them. And I think it goes back to a point you made, and actually a point I agree with for The Last of Us, that our expectations of what we wanted the story to be versus what the story is that Naughty Dog presents us, I think sometimes those two don't line up. And I think a lot of people are upset because they wanted their expectations of what they thought the game should be versus what it was and what it was presented to us. I understand that, I fall in that camp of saying, that's not the story Naughty Dog wanted us to experience. Which I know flies in the face of my Last Jedi criticisms, because I'm on the other side of The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
For some different reasons, obviously. So I thought it was a good idea to kill Joel. I didn't like it, but I think narratively speaking, it's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, it was emotional and it was great. And look, I agree. And so we're going to be here all night.
Yeah.
if we take every story beat that hard. But that's the big one.
That's the big one.
I mean, that is a massive one, and that's one of the many that has fans riled up. So obviously, after that moment, Ellie's furious. They end up letting her go.
Yeah, because she wants revenge.
As well as Tommy. So they're let go. They go back to Jackson. They come up with the idea, we got to go. And we got to get revenge. We got to find them. We got to, and then you feel like, okay, so now we know what the game's about.
Right. It's about revenge. It's Ellie's and Tommy.
Revenge story.
Yep.
And Tommy as well. And they agree, okay, we'll leave in the morning. And of course, Tommy's gone. He goes off and does it himself. They know that they're associated with this WLF group, which is based in Seattle. So they know they got to go to Seattle.
And we spend 3 days in Seattle playing as Ellie, with her hunting down all the people that were involved with the murder of Joel. Her, her quote unquote, father figure, right?
Yep.
I'm going to say real quickly, I loved playing as Ellie again.
Yeah.
There was some interesting things that happened. There was some times in the game when I realized, I could actually use the infected to turn them against the wolves, what we call the WLF, the wolves. But as I was playing and collecting all the collectibles, all the little things that kind of make it the video game aspect of it, right? I realized that there's also this other story, that there's this whole world going on up in Seattle where you got the wolves, who are this kind of paramilitary group. And then you have the Scars, which are this religious cult that are living up there. And these two groups are battling against each other. And as Ellie, you're kind of trying to stay clear of both of them while trying to navigate around and between kind of their ongoing battle until you can find Abby, the person that's responsible for Joel's death.
Yep.
I will say that day one is probably the longest part of the game, because it's that open world and there's just a lot going on. And that day 2 and day 3 do pick up a little bit in speed. I will say that I did go pretty slow. When I beat the game, I was almost at 40 hours because
my goodness.
I was doing a lot of stealth killing, a lot of stealth, getting around people and looking for collectibles. Because I'm going to go for the platinum trophy on this game and I'm not that far off being done with it right now. So that's kind of the first half, maybe a little more than half of the game. Then Naughty Dog does something, Matt, that I must say, I think it took a lot of huevos to do.
Oh, yeah.
They flipped the script, and now, a little past the halfway mark, they make you start over again as Abby. And now you're playing as the character that killed Joel, which was a beloved character from the first game. I gotta say that when I first started as Abby, I wasn't really happy with that direction. How did you feel when that change happened?
Well, first of all, it's 3 days that are it's a decent amount of time that you've invested into making it through to Seattle to finally get to Abby.
Right.
And when you confront Abby, that's when you make the switch.
Yeah.
That's what's most what's crazy about it.
You're kind of robbed of like a resolution.
Yeah. This is the end of the game. I'm like, man, this is going to be a little shorter than I thought. Maybe I've been playing longer than I thought or something. And that moment, it's Tommy's on the ground. Jesse's been shot in the face.
Yep.
And you're like, oh my gosh. And that's when you see Abby. And then, it goes dark and you start over. And it's Seattle day 1 again. And you're Abby. Look, I'm with you. Because at that point, I still hate her a lot.
Yep.
Like, she's the worst person in the world. And she, for me, is just so masculine and like, I don't know, she carries herself in this arrogant way, I felt like, and I just didn't like the character design. I hated everything that was happening. Like, I hated it. I hated her. I hated everything about that. And I know that that's how I was supposed to feel.
Right,
I can't imagine they expected us to feel any other way other than, oh, WTF, man. Like, now I gotta go play as Abby and do this all over again.
Yep.
So I'll agree with you on that point. I wasn't stoked. I remember texting my brother who'd beaten the game, and I was like, I don't really like playing as Abby. Like, she doesn't have this, and I don't know, just like, it feels weird. But let me tell you, about an hour in, I was like, okay, now I'm, and I say that for a lot of reasons, and one of the biggest reason is I got to see a whole new world of Seattle. Like, as Ellie, you're picking up letters and you're trying to piece together what's going on.
Yep.
And why are the Scars feuding with the WLF and who are they? And you don't really know much at all story-wise about what's going on with them. All you know is I got to go kill Abby. And then this, immediately, you know what's going on. And you continue to figure out what's going on with the truce between the tribes. And it's just like, talk about, anyway. So just talking about that transition, I will say this. By the end of the game, I really, really, really enjoyed playing Abby's storyline more than I enjoyed playing Ellie's. Like, a lot more.
I don't know that I enjoyed one or the other better, necessarily. But what I really loved is that Neil Druckmann and Naughty Dog, they wanted to show us the other side of the equation. We really, you flip over, you start playing as Abby, and you hate her. And then she starts having these flashbacks. So, like, we didn't really talk about this, but Ellie was having flashbacks every time she'd go to sleep. And when she would have these flashbacks, she'd have these flashbacks of Joel. Joel taking her to the Wyoming Museum and taking her to this. And, like, she had this moment where he found an audio tape of the Apollo 11 takeoff, right? And she got to play it because she loves outer space stuff. And, like, so even though Joel is dead in the game, every day of those 3 days, when she goes to sleep, there's some sort of flashback where you get to play as her and Joel and kind of like have these moments. And like they were substantial. They weren't like a little quick, like 5 minute thing. Like they're anywhere from like half an hour to almost an hour in length. And so you kind of feel Joel's presence still in the game through her. When you're playing as Abby, she has something kind of like a flashback, except for her, it's a nightmare. She is reliving the moment when her dad dies, which we come to find out her dad was one of the Fireflies in Salt Lake. She was a part of the Fireflies in Salt Lake. Her dad was the surgeon, was the doctor that was going to remove the cordyceps fungus from Ellie's brain to create the cure. Joel kills her dad. Yeah. So then all of a sudden you start realizing she wanted to kill Joel because Joel murdered her father. Her father wasn't a bad guy. He was a really good guy. He was a scientist. He had some doubts about whether or not they should go forward with kind of the whole procedure. And then they decided to do it anyway. And he was like, okay, well, let's do this because it'll save this many people. She relives going into the surgical room and finding her dad dead every time she goes to sleep at the end of each day. She's tortured by this. So we see the game from Abby's side, and they took you from hating this character to humanizing her. You see all the friends that she's with. These are all former Fireflies from Salt Lake that basically, because the Fireflies were devastated there, they needed bigger groups. They needed some protection. They needed to be part of a larger organization. And they ended up falling in with the WLF, the Wolves in Seattle. And then they started realizing that that group wasn't who they thought it was. And it was run by this maniacal madman named Isaac, who does all these things that they're not comfortable with. And they kind of feel like in a rock and a hard place. And as you're playing as Abby, you start coming across all these characters that you've already seen before as Ellie, that Ellie has been, getting her retribution and revenge and killing these people. And you're always like almost a day behind, half a day behind all these things. And so it does this great job of, humanizing these other people, making you care about them, which from a story perspective, you kind of get to this point where you're like, oh crap, I just murdered all these people and now I'm coming up and seeing them and I realize Manny's a cool dude. Yeah. And Owen loves Abby and Abby loves Owen, but Abby's just consumed by her revenge to try to find and get retribution for her father's murder. And Mel gets pregnant by Owen. And it's this kind of like love triangle that's really kind of awkward because Owen still loves Abby, but he can't be with Abby because Abby can't commit to him. And it's all this stuff, and you realize, oh, I've just been murdering all these people, and now I like these people. From a storytelling perspective, that to me was brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. It was well done. It was well pulled off. It made it so when I got towards the end of the game, I struggled. Because eventually you catch back up to where Abby and Ellie come together, and you're still playing as Abby.
Yeah.
Matt, I'm not gonna lie. I had a huge amount of fear that I was gonna have to kill Ellie as Abby.
Yeah. I also was. I mean, what they made you do was already difficult.
Yeah.
To basically fight her as Abby. I kept waiting for them to switch me back to Ellie, and it didn't happen. And that was really tough. But yeah, seeing the story from the other perspective was maybe, and that's why I liked her story so much more, is because it was like my mind was expanded.
Yeah.
It was like I was understanding the world in a way that I hadn't ever seen it before. Because first of all, when you start as her and you walk out, and the WLF is massive. I mean, it's literally like a stadium. and there's livestock, and I mean it's massive. It's like, oh my gosh, this is real civilization. Like, whoa, they're way far along. And, you know, the way that they do rounds is so different, and they've got, you know, they've got weapons like crazy. Ammunition was never an issue.
Right, yeah.
And you've got cars and like procedures to check in. I mean, it was just like out of this world organized. And then, you know, as you progress and you kind of defect.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't kind of defect. As Abby, you defect. And like you said, I began to go, I like Abby. Like, I like playing as Abby too.
Yeah,
she's kind of a baddie.
Her character has emotional growth, and I think she comes to realize that the choices she's been making aren't the best choices for her and aren't leading her to a good place.
Yeah, and that's something that at the end we'll talk about. That's one of the more devastating moments for me is a realization I had at the very, very, very end. But yeah, Abby, I just really enjoyed it. And I could talk about this game forever and ever because there's so many things that happen when I play as Abby that I enjoyed, whether that's, you know, encountering Tommy, who's a sniper that Manny and I are trying to maneuver around, and he's really pissing me off. And I'm like,
because
stop
he's so
shooting at
freaking
me.
Good.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Yep.
I've died there quite a few times. I was so frustrated. Or that's because you're piecing together where you are leading up to the moment where you encounter Ellie again. You're like, oh man, I'm really close. Because Jesse goes and runs after Tommy when he hears the gun, and Ellie goes to the aquarium. And
right. So like the story's kind of like layered, but then like you're kind of playing this mental puzzle game, right? Like, oh, this fits in here.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what's going to happen next, right?
Right.
I enjoyed that.
It's amazing. Oh, it was amazing. It was mentally exhausting.
Yep.
In every possible way. And then the story where she befriends these scars, it's amazing. That's where you see the growth from Abby.
Yep.
You see her as a human being and her emotions, and you realize that Mel is actually a bee and the worst. And I was,
right.
I'm glad she died. I'm sad that her baby died.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong.
Yep.
But she sucked. That girl, she straight up sucked.
When you got to the resolution and Abby beats the holy hell out of Ellie, but decides to let her live and says she's had enough. And then we flash forward to, I don't know, maybe 18 months, 2 years down the road where Ellie is living in a farmhouse with Dina and Jesse's baby JJ. And I don't know if you remember, but early on in the game, there's like this little throwaway line where Dina was like, yeah, I'd like to own a farmhouse one day. And,
I remember.
And Ellie's like, what? Like, you know, you want to own sheep and stuff? And she's like, yeah, that'd be nice. And they own sheep and they're there. I honestly thought that when they got to the point where Ellie was sitting out on the tractor with little baby JJ, and they're just kind of like looking over this rise, and it's beautiful. I honestly thought credits were going to roll right there and just say, like, you know,
black.
That's it. That's the game. And then it doesn't end. And Tommy shows back up. And you can see that Ellie is struggling with PTSD over those 3 days in Seattle, and with the loss still of Joel. Like, it still is affecting her mentally in a very negative way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I, at that moment, was sad because I went, this would have been a nice way to end the game. Instead, we're going to go back into the headspace of, I still need to exact my revenge upon the person that did me wrong. Even though that person literally almost killed you and let you walk away from death twice. Because they wanted to kill Ellie when they killed Joel, and Abby let her walk. And then after she beat the holy hell out of her and Jesse was killed and they almost killed Dina, who was pregnant at the time, in the theater, Abby decided to let Ellie walk again and said, if I ever see you again, I'm going to kill you. the fact that Ellie decides after all of that she still can't let it go, I was sad. I was like, this is not going to end happy. This is going to get so much darker.
Yeah, that was the hardest part of the game for me. When it was hard for two reasons. Tommy's life has been destroyed.
Yeah, he's a cripple.
Tommy was such a nice, like, happy guy, but now he is broken.
Yeah.
He's separated from his wife.
Yep.
And he is so obsessed with revenge that he's been tracking and trying to figure out where Abby is. And it's devastating to me that his life has taken such an awful turn. And I kept going, oh my gosh, Ellie, please don't go. Please don't go. Listen to Dina. Please stay with Dina.
Yeah, because Dina's begging her.
Here.
Dina's begging her not to go.
Yeah, it was devastating when you wake up in the middle of the night and you start playing as Ellie, and I'm like, oh crap, I know exactly what I'm about to do. I got to go get my stuff together, and I got to go down to freaking Santa Barbara, and that's exactly what happens.
Yep.
And Dina gives you the ultimatum, and you leave, and you give up everything.
Yeah.
And you go to Santa Barbara, where we see earlier that Abby has been taken by a group down in Santa Barbara where she was looking for fireflies.
She's looking for safety. Yeah.
She and Lev have been taken by a group you call the Rattlers.
Right.
Down in Santa Barbara, who they just appear like trailer trash, basically.
I kind of thought of like maybe they were like a biker gang that kind of turned into...
okay, sure.
Yeah.
Because they're wearing biker helmets, and they're like big dudes that like are strong and scary, so it makes sense. So yeah, long story short, Ellie tracks them back down there to Santa Barbara. She finds the same people that took Abby and Lev. She kills them.
Right.
After she gets the information on where they are, where Abby's being held. You make your way through a crazy labyrinth of mass hysteria. That was shockingly difficult and way hard.
Yep.
And you finally free these prisoners, and Abby's not there, and they tell you, oh, Abby's down by the beach, and she's basically being crucified is the best way that I can explain it. She's literally tied to a pole, and so is Lev.
Yep.
And Ellie's injured and makes her way down there, cuts Abby free, Abby cuts Lev free, and you three are just kind of sitting there at the beach. And Lev is incapacitated.
I gotta say, there's that moment when she realizes the torture and the horror that Abby has gone through at the hands of the Rattlers.
Yeah.
And like, at first, like, she's gonna kill her right here, and then you realize it looks like she has compassion, and she cuts him down to release him and let him go. And then as she goes to walk into her boat, she's got a PTSD flashback of Joel, and then she just can't. She just can't let Abby walk away. My heart just literally sunk when that happened. I went, no, like, because I've also gone through this experience and the emotions of seeing Abby humanized and becoming to like her, and then knowing she's been tortured now for how long by these Rattlers. And you realize that, like, these Rattlers are keeping humans as slaves. They're also keeping infected as slaves. Mm-hmm. I don't want to imagine the horrors that Abby had to go through.
No.
And I just wanted Ellie to come to terms with everything and just be like, enough is enough. But she can't let it go. She has to have her revenge. And so you end up in a brutal fight with Abby this time as Ellie. So it kind of mirrors the fight you had earlier. And you get to a point where Abby's dying. Abby is dying. She maybe has a second or two left, and she's going to be gone. And Ellie lets her go. And Ellie breaks down. She cries. And Ellie also gets bit. And I can't tell if Abby bit her tips of her fingers off or just bit her hard enough that she was bleeding enough that she had to lose the kind of from the first knuckle up. She had to lose her pinky and her ring
Gollum
finger.
in Lord of the Rings.
On her left hand. And then Ellie lets Abby and Lev go because she realizes she'd been saved twice by Abby. And at the last second, she realizes, I don't know, has some amount of humanity left in her to let it go. And then you see her go back to the farmhouse, and Dina's gone, and the baby is gone. And Ellie pulls out the guitar that Joel gave her, that Joel taught her how to play the guitar and to have music, something positive in her life. And she goes to play it, but she's missing those 2 fingers and she can't do the fingering. And so it sounds bad and isn't complete. And it was at that moment I went, Ellie lost everything. Everything she had that was good in her life in this apocalyptic world, which is still a really bad thing. Everything good in her life she lost because of her desire to have revenge. And the flip side was Abby ended up, even though Abby went through horror, Abby ended up finding her humanity again in her, after she got retribution from her father, she ended up finding her humanity again, as she was trying to break free of the cycle that she was caught in. I thought it was this beautiful tale of revenge and redemption, and Naughty Dog plays us like a fiddle emotionally and does all these things. When it was over, I just was exhausted, Matt.
Yeah. It was absolutely exhausting, and it was just a devastating end to a devastating video game and a devastating story that's being told. And yeah, it was... Look, when you come down to it and you take off your blinders and the fact that you love Ellie isn't a great person.
No.
And Abby isn't a great person either.
Right.
But she's being better, and she's getting better. And by the end, you certainly realize she definitely is better.
Yeah. Than
Ellie is. And people, I was reading reviews and watching people online that really wanted to kill Abby at the end. And I was like, when I was sitting there and we're strangling her under the water, and I go, if I kill her, this will be one of the most frustrating experiences.
Yeah.
That I have experienced as a gamer. And when we let her go, I said, oh my gosh, at least it doesn't totally end completely dark.
Right.
Like there is something good in Ellie still.
Yeah. It's something I was saying.
Oh, it was hard.
It was something I was saying earlier, is that it's all the little decisions, all the little story context moments that get you to where you end up. It's the journey, not the destination. That's what these games are about. It's a journey. The first game was the same way. The second game is the same way. If you would have just said, hey, Joel dies and Ellie's going to go kill the person, and that's all the game was, okay, you kill Abby at the end of it, you'd feel good. You'd be like, okay, I got retribution, whatever. But instead, they take you on this journey where they make you see things from the other side, and you realize that Abby's father was murdered by Joel, that Joel was not the hero. He was the hero to us as the player, but in the story, he's not really the hero. And that's a hard thing to kind of come to grips from. And I think for a lot of people, that's where a lot of the drama and the criticisms came, is because they felt like their expectations of who these characters were and what they thought these characters were was changed. And I don't know that they were changed. I just think that we were presented with a different viewpoint. And we got to see things from a different angle. And we realized, oh, when we shine the light from this direction, we actually see more of the flaws than we saw the first time. And the luster's kind of off that character. And you realize that they're like everyone. All humans are flawed. No one is perfect. And I think that that's what Neil Druckmann and Naughty Dog wanted us to know.
Yeah, there were a lot of life stories to be told in this game. This is more than just like I'm having fun playing a video game.
Right.
I mean, this is a heavy emotional human story that's being told. Just the setting is in an apocalypse, but the message was well received by people like you and me who enjoyed the game and understood the story for what it was trying to tell us. And that's what makes me so sad when I look at the users and the other people playing the game. I feel like they missed it.
Yeah.
They missed the whole point of the game. And if you're not invested emotionally and you're not willing to to have empathy, and that's a terrible thing to say, that if you didn't like this game, that means you don't have empathy. But if you didn't like this game, you don't have empathy. I mean, you have to understand the different perspectives to every story being told. I mean, when you look at U.S. history or anyone's history, our greatest triumphs is someone else's hugest defeat.
Right.
And we are villains and we are heroes, depending on what perspective you're looking at it from. And neither perspective is the only truth. My only truth is the way that I live my life and the lens that I see the world. But your truth is a lot different than my truth.
Right.
Even if we're in the same house, like we were, maybe your trip, I was a huge villain on the trip we took to Sydney. And I thought I was a hero. But
who said you were the villain? Who said you were the villain? You're not the villain, Matt.
Emmy said I was the villain.
What does she know?
Kidding.
What does she know?
Yeah, she's just 3. But
it's the Obi-Wan Kenobi line. It's the truth from a certain point of view. I mean,
exactly. It really is, though.
It really is.
And so, for just kind of, at least for me, wrapping up the story portion of our discussion here, I'm just gonna come out and say it. This was fantastic for me.
Yeah.
This was emotional. This was more than I expected. This is more than I wanted. And in moments, it was certainly more devastating than I wanted. And I felt things in ways that no other medium has made me feel something.
They make you kill dogs. I'm not even a pet lover, but when I realized, I'm like, oh crap, this dog is gonna like give me away. I've got to silence this dog, and I'm like, I've got to kill a dog.
Kind of messed up.
I was like, this is messed up. Like, I want to say, I agree with you. I think this story is beautiful, haunting, and devastating all at the same time.
Yes.
It's an emotional roller coaster. It makes you reevaluate how you look at things and how you should maybe be looking at things. And I thought, story-wise, my hat is off to Neil Druckmann and his entire team. I think it is a brilliant story. Devastating, dark, beautiful, but brilliant.
Yep. It was amazing.
So
it was amazing.
Let's talk a little bit about the some of the controversy, because we know, and we've talked about this, that the game was, we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, the game was spoiled. And there was claims that it was a former employee, there was claims that it was an employee, there was claims that it was just data mined because of negligent or not enough security. Whatever that was, I hope that it wasn't an employee or even a former employee, because so many people's hard work, you would just be, taking a dump all over. And I don't like that idea. That actually hurts me. I find it a little more palatable that they just had lax security on their AWS server or something, and it was data mined. But the leaks gave the big things away. They said Joel was going to die. They said you were going to end up playing as Abby, which was Joel's killer. And that at the end there was going to be a big fight between Ellie and Abby, and no one was going to win. And unfortunately, those 3 big spoilers are all correct. Narratively, those are things that did happen. However, if you just hear those 3 things, you don't have all the little things that make up the story, that get you to where you want. You don't go on the emotional journey on the ride. And there was a lot of people that were really, really upset by the things they heard without having played the game, without having gone through the experience. I didn't read this stuff. I stayed clear of it because I wanted to experience this for myself. I did not want the spoilers. And I'm glad I did because I loved this game and loved this story, and I think it's brilliant. But if I had known those things beforehand, it would have colored my perception differently.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, went in pretty much completely clean, other than what Naughty Dog had released for me to see.
Yep.
I did watch some of the trailers and a little bit of the gameplay just so I could get a feel for what to expect, what was maybe new and something to get excited about. But that was it. And, man, they delivered. I mean, just to briefly touch on the other things that make a game great,
right?
Like gameplay. It was
amazing.
Great. I mean, it was great. It was everything that you could do in The Last of Us and then expanded. The AI was better. The addition of like dogs, different types of enemies, new types of infected,
right.
Different ways for the infected to absolutely haunt your dreams and your nightmares.
Stalkers.
You thought the basement was bad in The Last of Us, the first one? Oh my gosh, there's like 8 places that are way worse than that in The Last of Us 2 that absolutely
the Rat King.
Terrifying. That Rat King was so gross.
So rough. I want to ask you a question about some of the controversy, because I started reading, because I stayed away from all spoilers. I started reading that Laura Bailey, who voiced Abby, was getting death threats.
Ugh.
And that Neil Druckmann was getting all sorts of hate mail, hate tweets, whatever. It was very anti-Semitic, very violent. And I started kind of like looking at some of this stuff and seeing this. And the sad thing is that some people interpreted Abby's character because she focused her life on getting retribution and revenge for her father's death. And she spent like 5 years doing nothing but trying to like exercise, get tough, mentally get tough, get prepared to find Joel, that her physique was more masculine. Mm-hmm. And because her physique was more masculine and didn't necessarily conform to what we're used to seeing the female form look like in video games, there were some people that thought that potentially Abby was a transgender character.
Right.
And she's not. She's not at all. She is female. She just happens to be buff because she's
masculine.
Yeah, she's focused her attention on becoming a beast of a woman who, is like the head Scar killer. Like she is like the go-to assassin, right?
Right.
But
she's a straight woman, not trans. Like she's a straight woman,
right? Exactly,
like a white straight woman. She is, I don't know why people are so stupid. Right. My gosh, why do they even matter?
It doesn't.
Anyway.
It doesn't at all. But I started looking, and people were making all these claims about social justice warriors, this and that, and people were people threatened Laura Bailey, who, let me be clear, Laura Bailey is a voice actor. She's married to Travis Willingham, who's another voice actor. They do stuff for Critical Role. They have like an 18-month-old, 2-month-old baby. And I saw that people were literally saying, I'm going to come to your house and I'm going to kill your kid because you killed Joel. And I went, wait a minute. We're talking about a real human being in the real world that's a voice actor. Abby, Ellie, Joel are not real people. Let me say it again. Not real people. They are characters in a video game. But people, they had so much hate and vitriol that they were putting this out there. I hope that none of the Super Friends ever fall into the place where they would ever give in to that sort of behavior. I can't condone that. It makes me sad and sickened to hear that people would be going after people who are, creators, authors, voiceover actors, whatever. over something that's not real. It's just a story. I know
Right.
I know that video game players feel a closer tie to stories than someone who just watches a movie, because you feel like you're that character because you play as that character for a long period of time. I understand that, but that's no excuse to go after someone in the real world and to threaten them with violence, with racial slurs, with any of that kind of stuff. That's just unacceptable to me. The other thing that was really controversial is critics were scoring this thing amazing, but literally hours after it released, it was getting review bombed on Metacritic. And the funny thing is not even enough hours in the day had gone by for people to have been able to complete the game, and they're already review bombing it, which is so difficult because people honestly do look at reviews and they'll say, oh, the critics loved it, but the average reviewer says it's kind of a so-so game. But people wanted to push an agenda and review bomb this thing to, to vent their displeasure because they read the spoilers. They didn't actually play the game. And I heard somewhere, maybe like within the last day or two, that Metacritic is going to go back and is going to review all the reviews that came in by users within the first, period of time when there's no possible way they could have played the game and finished the game.
Right.
And are going to go and remove those because obviously it was a concerted effort to try to downvote a game and review bomb it.
Right. Yep. And I read that in the future they're delaying reviews for video games.
Yeah.
For a period of time, maybe 24 hours, for users to be able to review a game.
Which I think is a good thing, because ultimately it makes people hopefully play the game that they're going to review and not review it based off things they read online that could or could not be true.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of my favorite. He mostly does comedy. His name is Dunkey, but he's on YouTube and he does a lot of video game stuff. And he did The Last of Us 2. And he said he's very satirical in a lot of what he talks about. But towards the end, after talking about all the spoilers and like how crap this game is and what he's heard, and he goes, and this is why you actually play a game, because this is phenomenal. And then he goes on, about all the great things about the game.
Yeah.
And this is why in the world we live in now, you used to be able to trust these scores.
Yeah.
And now you can't.
You can't.
You just can't. And that sucks. But, it's quite, I don't understand it, but it's quite the divisive game.
I think there's some people that can honestly say like they would have preferred Joel to live. They would have preferred it to have been a different game. And I'm not going to say they're wrong. I'm not.
Right.
They can feel that and they can say, I wish it was different. I think that's a fair thought to have. I do feel a little bit sad because I think for a game like this, like it was with the first one, you need to be open to the story that the developer is trying to tell you. The author is an experience that they want you to go on. At the end of it, you can say, I didn't like that experience, but I think to say like, I wanted something different and I didn't get that is a little harder of a conversation, because it's like, well, that's your expectations of what you wanted, but not the expectation. You're not allowing yourself to take in what was presented to you in the story that they wanted to tell, because they wanted to tell a story of we're in a world that still is a horrible place to be, and why would you think that everything's going to be okay and everyone's going to get a happy ending? That's not the world in which we live in. And so no. I think that's okay. I'm fine with people saying, I played the game, there was parts of it I didn't like, it was too hard for me emotionally, or I don't care for revenge stories like that, because I will say the first game was a story of hope. I always felt there was hope. We're going towards Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
We're going towards the Fireflies. They're going to help us figure out a way to use, what's inside of you to help create a cure. That story was about hope. They were going towards the light, which is kind of like their thing. You'd say, fireflies go towards the light, whatever. But in The Last of Us 2, it was a revenge retribution type of story. It was just going to go to a dark place. I didn't feel like there was ever, true hope. I got that a little bit right at the end when Abby thought she was actually going to reunite with some firefly colony that was,
right.
Kind of reunited or whatever, and then it's not.
That's taken away.
And it breaks your heart that it's not that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I will say that overall I loved this game. I'm going to say that I loved the first game a little bit more. The first game for me is like a 10 out of 10. I'd say this game, though, is like a 9.5 out of 10. It is so close to perfection for me. It's different. It's completely different. It's a different tone, but still it's an amazing story. Gameplay, music. I mean, oh my gosh, the music in this game, the music in the first game, music is amazing. The art direction, everything. So that's where I'm at. 9.5 out of 10 for The Last of Us 2.
Yeah. Game is beautiful. We didn't get to talk about the graphics, the cinematics, the cutscenes. Everything about the game is incredible.
Yeah.
For me, this game is a 10 out of 10 and probably a top 3 all time. Mm-hmm. Like, I thought this was one of the best games I've ever played. And I've played a lot of games. I played video games since I was a kid. And I think because I'm older and this game just feels like it was meant for me. It was dark. It was scary. It was emotional. It was subversive in my expectations. Yeah. And I love that. Yep. When things just get turned upside down and I'm forced to reevaluate what's going on. It was beautiful. I cried. I laughed. It was everything that I could have wanted from a video game, and I loved it. And I would recommend that to anyone who enjoys hardcore story, narrative-driven games. The Last of Us was good. Honestly, I thought The Last of Us was pretty good. I wasn't in love with it like everybody else. Even playing it, it was good. Mm. And I was excited for the second one. And I played the second one, and for me, we're talking...
You like dark things, and this game was even darker than the first one.
Yeah, and I think it was tighter.
Yeah, okay.
Narratively, for me, it was tighter. And it was more complex, which I liked. So for me, this was massive. It was like watching the Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame saga. It was that epic to me. And it was the narrative weaving. It was beautiful. It was perfect. So, I don't know that I would change anything.
So I got to say it again. Naughty Dog knows how to tell stories. And that's why I'm excited for you to play those dang Uncharted games. Because they tell great stories in a not apocalyptic world.
Yeah, I need to get into some happy stuff. I've already started Ghost of Tsushima though, so yeah. I don't know
after Ghost, you should switch over and start those because you'll enjoy the story there immensely as well, and it's a little brighter of a story.
Lighter. Yeah.
So I'm with you. Like I said, 9.5 out of 10. I think the first one is a 10 out of 10 for me, and I think the only difference is the first game was a little more on the hope, and this one was a little darker. Not that that's bad, but just if I have to choose between a story with a little more hope versus one that's a little darker, I kind of like the little bit more hope to be going towards in the end. But like I said, this game was amazing for me. It hit all the right notes. Even though they were brutal and hard to watch at times and hard to experience, they hit all the right notes. From a storytelling perspective, I think this is a work of art. It really is. Yep. It really is. Yep. And so I would recommend it to any of my friends that play video games, that enjoyed the first one. I'd say it's definitely a must play. If you're not a video game person, well, Matt and I have told you the story and given you all the high points and some of the in-betweens and tried to help take you a little bit on the journey, so there you go. Matt, I think the question of the week, I know a lot of people are asking right now, Team Zebra, Team Giraffe, which stands for, Team Ellie or Team Abby. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I didn't look at the game as like you had to pick one or the other.
No.
But I just think that's kind of a funny thing. But I think the question of the week needs to be more along the lines of, if you played the game, what do you score it? Out of a 1 to 10 scale, where do you score The Last of Us Part 2? Just based on this game, nothing else, not on the previous game, whatnot. I think that would be a fair question, because I'm curious to hear from super friends that have played this game where they rate it. Because obviously there's a lot of other stuff going on with the review bombing and whatnot. But I'm curious as to where a lot of the super friends fall, because I haven't talked. I think you and maybe Tim Paulin are the only two people I've talked to that have played this game. And it's because I literally was talking to Tim Paulin the day before as I was playing this, and I knew you and I were going to talk about this for the podcast. And so it's interesting. I was a little nervous you and I were going to be on different sides of the fence on this game.
Really?
Only because this game...
I knew you'd like it.
Only because this game, I think, has a lot of people that are kind of divisive about it, and I didn't know how well you liked the first game, and if you were going to be, just coming off playing that, going to be super, super tied to Joel and Ellie the way they were.
I get that.
So I was a little hesitant. I'm like, oh, I hope he likes it, because I loved it. So anyway, super friends, we want to hear from you. 1 to 10 scale, what did you think of The Last of Us 2? We will read those answers next week. And next week, I'll tell you all about my Yellowstone trip that I got coming up. Which I'm excited and happy for. We're going to see if we can get my boys to become junior rangers at Yellowstone. So anyway.
Awesome.
Well, from all of us here at the Fortress of Nerditude to all of you out there, wherever you may be, may the Force be with you. Always.